On an early October morning in the mountain city of Gabala, Azerbaijan became the stage for a gathering of unusual scale and symbolism. Presidents, prime ministers and ministers streamed in from across the Turkic-speaking world, from Ankara to Tashkent, from Bishkek to Budapest, to attend the 12th summit of the Organization of Turkic States, OTS. Among them was President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan of Turkey, whose presence was seen by many observers as Turkey's clear assertion of leadership within the Turkic Bloc. Cameras tracked his arrival. The blue and gold OTS emblem rippled in the autumn breeze. Amid the glitz and pageantry, a simple but profound question hung in the air. Can the Turkic states translate their cultural kinship into a real geopolitical bloc, one that shapes security and development across Eurasia? The Organization of Turkic States traces its formal foundation to the Nakhchivan Agreement of October 2009, though cooperation among Turkic language nations and cultural institutions predates that by decades. What began as more of a cultural and educational forum, emphasizing heritage, language, student exchanges and soft diplomacy, has steadily broadened its scope. Today, the OTS comprises 5 core member states: Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. It also maintains observer or partnership ties with Hungary, Turkmenistan and occasionally the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. The chairmanship rotates among members and the administrative helm is led by a Secretary-General, currently Ambassador Kubanishbek Aliyev, a Kyrgyz diplomat who has held the post since 2022. Over time, the OTS has gradually stretched into areas like trade, energy connectivity, security cooperation, digital infrastructure, and youth diplomacy. Hosted by Azerbaijan in Gabala on the 6th to 7th of October 2025, the 12th summit adopted the theme Regional Peace and Security. This reflected the urgent strategic tone of the moment as the Caucasus, Central Asia, and the broader Eurasian space remain tense with shifting alignments, border disputes, and external power competition. Erdoğan departed from Istanbul's Ataturk airport in the morning and was officially welcomed upon arrival, a sequence covered widely by Turkish and Azerbaijani media. The summit agenda was ambitious. The Council of Foreign Ministers met a day earlier. Leaders would convene to discuss security coordination, regional connectivity, economic frameworks, cultural cooperation, and ultimately adopt the Gabala Declaration. Bilateral sidelines, protocol diplomacy, and media optics filled the intervening hours. The host, Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, set the tone from the start, asserting, "Today, the Organization of Turkic States has evolved into one of the significant geopolitical centers." He further called upon the bloc to unite as a single center of power against the changing tides of global politics. Other leaders echoed that narrative. The Turkic nations, from Anatolia to the Altai, must deepen links without surrendering national sovereignty. On the sidelines, Erdoğan reinforced Turkey's view that the OTS is more than cultural kinship. It must become a strategic instrument of stability and development. For Turkey, this summit was another step in a long march to anchor its leadership in the Turkic world. Ankara has invested heavily in pipelines, such as Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, transport corridors funneling Central Asian goods through the Caucasus to Europe, cultural diplomacy, and defense ties. Erdoğan hopes the OTS becomes a regional instrument, a crisis management forum, an energy and trade highway, and a collective voice in security debates across Eurasia. For Azerbaijan, hosting the summit in Gabala carried deep symbolism. After years of war and territorial disputes, particularly over Nagorno-Karabakh, Baku wants to present itself as a regional convener and bridge builder. The optics of leaders gathered beyond capital cities reinforced an image of stability and regional identity. Other member states saw the gathering as an opportunity to press concerns over border security, infrastructure investment, climate resilience, tech cooperation and educational ties, all under a shared Turkic umbrella. To understand why this summit carried extra weight, one must look back at the trajectory of the OTS. The 11th summit in Bishkek, November 2024, focused heavily on connectivity, youth and ICT cooperation. An earlier informal summit in Budapest in May 2025 produced a Budapest Declaration, extended the Secretary-General's term, appointed a new executive director for Hungary, and even granted observer status to Northern Cyprus in the Turkic Academy. These incremental steps have nudged the OTS from culture toward policy. The Gabala meeting is widely viewed as the moment of truth. Can the bloc begin to issue a common political voice on regional peace and security? As night fell on the first day, Gabala's streets glowed under the OTS banners. Delegations prepared for the leaders' session the following morning, the moment for bold declarations and strategic direction. President Erdoğan's attendance was more than symbolic. For more than 2 decades, his strategy has sought to entwine Turkey's identity with that of the broader Turkic world. Cultural soft power, religious ties, student exchanges. Underneath, a geopolitical ambition to make Turkey the anchor of a Turkic bloc. As major power rivalries intensify across Eurasia, Ankara hopes the OTS can emerge as a coordination mechanism in crisis zones, a trade and energy bridge linking Central Asia to European markets, a collective diplomatic voice in regional security issues. The choice of regional peace and security as the summit's theme was hardly incidental. The Turkic states face immediate concerns: fragility in the Caucasus after wars, extremist threats in Central Asia, cyber and hybrid security challenges, and the influence of external alliances. Gabala unfolded under the watchful eyes of larger powers. Russia, with deep military, political and economic ties across Central Asia and the Caucasus, sees any emergent bloc as a potential rival to its sphere of influence. China, through its Belt and Road projects, is deeply invested in infrastructure across Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, yet remains wary of overt security coalitions outside its control. The European Union and United States maintain strategic interest in Eurasian stability and energy routes, though they tend to engage bilaterally rather than through a bloc like the OTS. Observers note that as the OTS seeks a geopolitical role, it must balance external pressures carefully, neither becoming a proxy of one power nor a front line in great power competition. Economic disparity is stark. Oil-rich Kazakhstan contrasts sharply with more modest economies like Kyrgyzstan or Uzbekistan. Divergent foreign policy alignments. Some members gravitate toward Moscow or Beijing, even as Turkey pushes a more independent Turkic leadership. Border disputes, ethnic tensions and internal instability periodically flare in Central Asia. Institutional infancy, the OTS is still young compared with long-established regional organizations like the EU or the Eurasian Economic Union, EAEU. Symbolic declarations may not suffice. Critics warn that unless agreements are backed by funded projects and joint institutions, the OTS risks remaining a diplomatic club, not a force. Reaffirm a collective commitment to regional peace and security, encourage deeper economic integration and infrastructure corridors, promote cultural and educational exchanges to consolidate Turkic identity, propose cooperation among law enforcement, border security and intelligence services. The real test will come after the summit. How many pledges translate into joint projects, funding, institutional frameworks, and a consistent common stance during regional crises? For Azerbaijan, hosting in Gabala was more than logistics. It was a message. Baku wants to be seen not just as a conflict actor, but as a regional anchor. In a country long dominated by Baku and gone through war cycles over Karabakh, this summit allowed President Aliyev to project stability, legitimacy, and regional prestige beyond the capital. Throughout speeches and dialogues, the theme of shared Turkic identity resonated. Leaders invoked common historical memory, linguistic roots and cultural lineage from Central Asia to Anatolia. Proponents argue such shared identity can catalyze trust and synergy in addressing shared challenges. Skeptics caution, however, that emphasizing cultural unity risks glossing over the real diversity of political systems, priorities and interests within the bloc. As the summit's final session concluded, heads of state gathered for a group photo under the crisp Gabala sky. In closing comments, Aliyev crystallized the ambition: we must work to ensure that the Turkic states become a genuine center of power, united in purpose while respecting each other's sovereignty. Erdoğan clasped him in a firm handshake, an image widely circulated as emblematic of Ankara-Baku harmony. For external observers, the question remains open. Can the Turkic states move from symbolic unity to strategic relevance, or will their fate remain that of a soft diplomatic forum with limited leverage?